everyone, so welcome back to Sophia's Spiel. I haven't recorded one of these videos in a while, but basically it's an advice slash tip video on a topic, and this topic is going to be arguing while your spouse is deployed. And it was requested about a month and a half ago, and I decided to write down all of my ideas. And not only that, but I asked Chris, because he is deployed, his side of the story when it comes to arguing when they are deployed, and he gave me some great insights. So we came up with a few ideas, and first I do want to discuss the difference between a long-distance relationship and a deployment relationship. In a long-distance relationship, you can easily pick up the phone and call your significant other and discuss an issue very easily. But in a deployment, you don't really have that option. So that's one of the biggest differences between those two kinds of relationships. So today we are talking about a relationship while your spouse is deployed. So some of the reasons why an argument may happen, and we came up with 8, but obviously there's probably a lot more. So if you can think of some, please comment down below. Reason number 1 why you might start an argument is miscommunication. This happens a lot, especially when you are emailing and messaging through Facebook. You miss all of those verbal cues, and sarcasm doesn't come across very well. So there's a lot of miscommunication going on when you're writing each other in an argument. Number 2, broken promises. An argument might happen because I'm just going to say husband because it's a lot easier for me, but your husband is making promises that he's going to call you at a certain time and it doesn't happen. So you feel like you're being ignored, or you think there's something wrong and you really want to know, and it just causes a lot of tension and you start getting angry over it. Number 3, finances. For example, your husband might be out there spending a little bit of money. Of course, you know, during a deployment, they make a little extra money, and so they might spend a little more while they're out there, and you're over here trying to budget the account, and there are major differences, and you start to argue over money. Number 4, rumors and gossip. This one is the culprit of many arguments. And just to give you an example, you always hear stories of like other soldiers talking about their significant others and what they're doing, and then your soldier starts thinking that that's what you're doing too, and it just kind of spirals into a ball of negativity. So stay away from rumors and gossip. Number 5, old issues. Number 6, lack of trust. Number 7, insecurities. It could be either yours or his. And number 8, freedom and control. And by that, or lack of control. By that we mean sometimes when soldiers deploy and obviously the spouse stays home, there's a lost sense of control where the soldier no longer, not saying they're no longer part of your life, but life goes on and that's just going to happen. Or freedom, meaning that the spouse might feel like she has a little bit more freedom to go and do things. She's not really running on her husband's schedule that much anymore. So she feels the liberty to just do things on her own, which is okay. But the soldier might not be used to that. And so it causes a little bit of conflict there. Tip number 1 on how to use your time wisely is don't bring up old issues. You know you have a limited amount of time when you're on the phone with your husband or Skype. They're limited. So you want to make sure you're using that time wisely and discussing what needs to be discussed instead of bringing up old issues, because you know that's a never-ending cycle. Number 2, focus on talking / discussing without yelling or put downs. Try to stay away from all of that negative stuff like cursing, calling each other names, bringing each other down, because it doesn't help either one of you on either end. Number 3, keep talking and communicating, because you know communication is a lot better than silence. So you don't want to give each other the silence treatment for like days on end, and that's very unhealthy when it comes to your relationship. Number 4, Pick your battles. Some issues are more important than others, and you want to just go ahead and pick the ones that you feel are the most important to discuss, because as you know, there isn't that much time to discuss anything when you're limited. Number 5, admit your faults and explain why you reacted. And this is important, and it comes down to miscommunication. You always want to explain why you reacted a certain way. So explain why you feel angry or frustrated or stressed out. And that way your husband can hear your side of the story, and then maybe he can correct it by saying, you know, maybe I didn't mean it that way, or I'm sorry I said it like that. Or vice versa. You might have gotten angry at them or said something to them to trigger something on their side, but really you didn't mean to say it that way. Make sure you keep your messages clear and concise, especially if you are trying to get your point across. You don't want to say something and it leads to miscommunication again. So that's one of the reasons why you start arguing in the first place, is because you may have written something down the wrong way, or they may have misinterpreted what you really wanted to say. Email is really hard because you do miss all of those verbal cues again. Also, remember that your emails can be read over and over and over, because once you write it and you send it, it's in their inbox forever, unless they decide to delete it, of course. But remember, when you're writing that email and you're cursing them out and you're venting and you're going on and on and on, they can reread those words over and over and over, and it could open old wounds if you've already passed that argument. So what I suggest and what I do is, if I'm angry and in the heat of the moment and I just want to curse them out, I write it down, or I'll write it in my email, save a draft, and that's it. I won't even send it. Even if I'm still feeling the same way, I won't send it. Because I'll go back and I'll reread it and think, wow, that was pretty harsh. I don't feel like that anymore. There's no point in sending it. One challenge that makes this so hard, that makes arguments so hard, he can hang up on you and you can't get a hold of him. Number 2 is you hang up on him and he can't get a hold of you because you've turned off your phone and you want nothing to do with the argument. So that you want to avoid as much as you can, because you want to keep the line of communication open, or you're not going to be able to resolve it. Tip number 1. Once you've resolved it, don't revisit it. Meaning, once it's settled, done, and over with, don't go back and rehash it all over again, because you know it's going to start all over and it's going to turn into another argument, which could spiral into something else, and it just keeps going. So once you're done discussing it. And I am guilty of reopening that can of worms over and over and wanting to discuss it, because I have no idea why. I just always do it, and it's a big no-no. Number 2, don't put your business out on the internet, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I've seen a lot of arguments happen on Instagram where the spouse will write down how much of a douchebag her husband is being, and blah, 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 blah. And then the next day, they're sitting there defending their husbands and how sweet they are, and to disregard. You don't want to put your business out there, because you know people want to know the dirty details of your relationship. And not only that, if you're posting on Facebook how much of a douchebag your husband is being, basically all your friends and all your family, they are going to side with you, and they're going to give you reasons why they also think your husband is a douchebag. I've discussed that in a different video, but I just want to go ahead and put it out there and say, keep it between you two as much as you can, and try to avoid arguing while you're Skyping with your husband, because remember, he is in a room full of soldiers, contractors, and other people that can listen to your conversation. Even though they may not be able to hear your end, they can hear his end. And you don't want your business out there and being told to everyone else. So try and keep that to a minimum, and not to use social media sites to argue. Unless it's private, keep it between you two. Number 3, learn to say you're sorry. And that you know, goes a long way. If you can admit that you were wrong and you say you're sorry, that works wonders. I personally will not say I'm sorry until like 2 days later. I'll finally break down and just say, okay, I'm sorry, I apologize, I was wrong, you were right. And that's just my ego. And your husband could have a huge ego as well, but as long as you two are willing to work it out and say you're sorry, that really does go a long way. Number 4, it's okay to share your worries and your insecurities. This is really important because I've always been told to basically try to keep as much as you can inside and not try to stress your husband out by discussing some of your insecurities and your worries. But I don't believe in that. Well, in my opinion, in our relationship, Chris and I share everything. All of our insecurities, all of our worries, all of our fears, everything that makes us angry or confused. We share everything. And even though he's deployed, he still feels like he wants to know everything that's going on. Of course, not like every single little detail, but you know what I mean. Like, he wants to know what I'm thinking. That way he's not blindsided when he gets home and something just happens to develop and he's in shock because you never shared it with him while he was deployed. So he and I make it a habit to discuss how we're feeling, even if we are feeling depressed or sad or down, because I want to know if he's feeling that way so I can be the one to console him. Do you know what I mean? So it's very important for you two to share your feelings, your insecurities, your fears, everything. You should be able to do that because he is your best friend and the person that you're married to. So that's what Chris and I practice a lot. Number 5, be sensitive towards each other's feelings. That means you can have a bad day and he can also have a bad day. And don't expect it to be all happy all the time, because it's not. You're going to have days as well as he is. So the best tip I can say is listen to what he has to say. Listen to his feelings, even if you think it's not really that important, or he keeps talking about the same thing over and over and over, like how boring it is, how dumb it is, you know, or someone pissed him off that day, or they're doing the most stupidest thing ever, and it's repetitive. Just listen to him, because that's all he wants, is for you to have an open ear, and you want the same thing from him. Even if you're only talking about what's on TV or what you ate that day, you still want him to listen to you. So those are the tips. And so that ends this video. Hopefully you learned something on this video, and maybe a healthy practice on how to argue. If you have any ideas or suggestions on how someone can argue better while their spouse is deployed, please list them down below. I love listening to your feedback and reading that. And if you have a video response, please video response it down below. How do you handle arguing while your spouse is deployed? So remember, use your time wisely because it's limited. So thank you for watching, and I will talk to you on a later video. Bye.
Gonna put the world away for a minute, pretend I don't live in it. Sunshine gonna wash my blues away.